Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely huge, the evolution of the human-Earth relationship. We're going to trace this incredible journey from our earliest primitive societies, when we were completely at the mercy of nature, all the way up to the complex welfare policies that shape the modern world we live in today. So let's just dive right in. Now, when you hear the word geography, I bet your mind immediately jumps to, physical landscapes, right? Memorizing maps, pointing out mountain ranges, rivers, and rocks. But as you probably already know, that physical space, that's really only half the story. Human geography studies the actual pulse running through that space. It looks at how we interact with the Earth, why we build cities where we do, and what actually drives our movement across the globe.
And honestly, our everyday language reveals just how deep that pulse really runs. Think about it. We literally say the face of the earth or the mouth of the river. We call our major roads the arteries of circulation. We even talk about the profile of the soil. We use these powerful human anatomical metaphors to describe landforms for one very simple reason. Fundamentally, there is no hard line between us and nature. We are completely intertwined.
Section 1. The Human-Nature Bond.
To really understand this bond, we have to look at how the early pioneers of the field defined it. Friedrich Ratzel, for instance, saw it as a synthetic study, basically blending human society with the Earth's surface. Then you have Paul Vidal de la Blache, who focused on the interrelationship between the physical laws governing the planet and how living beings react to them. But for my money, Ellen C. Semple captured it perfectly. She described it as the changing relationship between the unresting man and the unstable Earth. I love that phrasing. It reminds us that this isn't some static picture. It's a highly dynamic, constant evolution.
Naturally, as geographers studied this bond, a massive debate emerged about how to actually measure it. On one side, you have the nomothetic approach. This one is highly generalized and quantitative. It's always seeking out universal laws, relying on huge chunks of statistical data to predict global trends. But on the flip side, you have the ideographic approach. This side argues, you can't just copy and paste a theory developed in North America onto a small town in India, right? It just doesn't work. The ideographic approach is descriptive, it's qualitative, and it absolutely demands a deep understanding of unique, local, regional nuances.
Section 2. Shifting Power Dynamics.
Historically speaking, this physical power dynamic has gone through three distinct phases. Phase 1 is what we call environmental determinism. Basically, in primitive societies, nature was the boss. It dominated completely, and humans just had to adapt. We call this the naturalization of humans. But as our technology advanced, we pushed into Phase 2, possibilitism. Suddenly, armed with heavy machinery and modern science, humans began to dominate. We started humanizing nature, but let's be honest, we were often just exploiting it. Once we finally realized that brute force approach wasn't sustainable, we shifted into Phase 3, neo-determinism, and this is all about the pursuit of a much-needed middle path.
Section 3. The Traffic Light Concept.
So what does this middle path look like? Well, geographer Griffith Taylor introduced a brilliantly simple analogy for this, a traffic light. Think of it just like an intersection. Step 1 is the red light. When nature signals that it's being pushed to the absolute brink, think severe resource depletion, humanity literally has to stop. We have to respect those environmental limits. Step 2 is the amber light. This is where we pause, prepare, proceed with extreme caution, and give the environment a chance to stabilize. And finally, step 3 is the green light. Once that natural balance is restored, then we get the go-ahead to develop, but sustainably. The core takeaway here, we can only conquer nature by obeying its rules, not by fighting it.
Section 4. From Data to Empathy. Now, the way we actually study this relationship academically has changed drastically over time. Early colonial geography was pretty much just basic exploration, driven heavily by imperial trade. By the 1930s, this evolved into areal differentiation, basically detailing specific regions. Then the 50s and 60s hit, bringing computers and massive spatial organization statistics. But honestly, that purely mathematical view felt a bit cold. It was missing something. So the 1970s sparked this huge revolution focused entirely on human empathy and lived experiences, which eventually paved the way for the postmodernism of the 90s. And that era was all about prioritizing local, unique contexts over those grand, sweeping universal theories.
Let's look a little closer at that 1970s pivot, because it's a real game changer. The quantitative revolution of the 50s and 60s essentially reduced complex human activities to cold statistics, spatial maps, and data points. But the 1970s pushback correctly argued that a completely dehumanized view completely misses the point. I mean, you can't just count agricultural outputs and call it a day. You have to look at empathy, humanism, and social justice. Real people have real struggles and distinct realities that spreadsheets simply cannot capture.
Section 5. The welfare approach.
So, that massive 1970s pushback actually splintered off into 3 distinct schools of thought. First, we have the welfare school. They argued that geography absolutely must focus on social well-being, access to healthcare, education, and equality. Then there's the radical school. Drawing heavily on Marxist philosophy, they examined how capitalism and uneven resource distribution structurally produce poverty and skewed power dynamics. And finally, the behavioral school shifted the focus inward, looking at human perception, religion, ethnicity, and how different groups actually experience their lived environments.
And this brings us to a truly defining moment for the field. Geographer David M. Smith managed to capture the entire essence of the welfare approach with just one incredibly piercing question: who gets what, where, and how? Seriously, that is the core of the discipline today. The who identifies the underprivileged in society. The what looks at the resources available. The where pinpoints the exact spatial inequality. And the how examines the structural policies needed to actually fix it. When you break it down, it is ultimately a quest for spatial justice.
Because of that massive shift in thinking, modern geography tackles the heavy hitters: hunger, poverty, racial discrimination, environmental degradation, and deep-seated social inequality. It is definitely no longer just about drawing borders on a map or finding the quickest trade routes. Today, geography is fundamentally about solving real-world crises and understanding territorial justice to ensure a more equitable future for everyone.
We've traveled a long way today, from primitive humans adapting to nature all the way to modern societies navigating the absolute brink of our environmental limits. And the wild thing is, we are all active participants in this ever-changing relationship right now. So, based on everything we've uncovered in this explainer, what kind of geographical footprint is your lifestyle leaving behind? Are you playing a part in building a sustainable, green light future? Or are we just driving right through a red light? Think about it.